Would you condone wife beating?
Well, no, but I wouldn't condone husband beating. So
Sure, but you're saying that, men's authority is through force. This is how, why we should have patriarchy.
No, makes. Not that it makes right.
Okay.
But that it
So it's not a
shapes.
moral ought.
No, it's not. It's just a descriptive
So
truth.
do you think that men should work to...
Can destroy the technology. That's what force doctrine is.
Men maybe in groups too, but can I say that about women?
No, because you're still going to have to compete with the male group. So your only options here are either forced to make you cooperate.
Well, then that's not cooperating.
Yeah. Well, it is. Well, hang on. But it is still cooperation. See, for human war and violence is always about scarcity and resource. I think that's Marxist nonsense.
What would it be about?
Oh, it could be about all sorts of different things.
All right, guys, so you're about to watch Andrew Wilson absolutely dismantle a feminist who walked right into one of the most brutal intellectual traps I've seen in a while. She comes in thinking she's going to expose patriarchy as this violent, oppressive system, and Andrew he doesn't even break a sweat. He flips the entire conversation on its head, and she has no idea what just happened to her. Like, she literally makes his argument for him multiple times and doesn't even realize it. The moment where he gets her to admit women depend on men for force even under matriarchy, guys, that's when you know it's over. This is a masterclass in debate. Let's get into it.
So do you think men should do these things?
Which things?
That they should use force as an authority against women?
Well, sometimes. In some cases, sure. Like if a woman's committing a crime, something like that, I think men are totally justified in using force. I think if a woman attacks a man, he's totally justified in using force.
I'm talking as a societal.
Yeah, but these are societal prescriptions. If a woman attacks a man, yeah, it's perfectly acceptable for him to
Sure.
smack her
But
up.
there are instances where you say would you condone wife beating?
Well, no, but I wouldn't condone husband beating. So
Sure, but you're saying that men's authority is through force. This is how why we should have patriarchy.
No, enforcement. Mm-hmm. Not so. That's the requisite.
But enforcement is.
Yeah, it is force. Yes. Yeah, but that doesn't mean
authority is through
remember,
force.
my claim is that might makes, not that it makes right.
Okay.
But that it.
So it's not a
shapes.
moral ought.
No, it's not. It's just a descriptive truth.
So do you think that men should work to cooperate with women in society?
No, I think women should cooperate with men in society because they depend on.
What does co-mean?
Yeah, I'll explain. I think that women depend on men for the use of force doctrine for their own protection. So I think.
I think under patriarchy, sure.
No, I think under matriarchy they still depend on men for force.
Well, you said protection, right?
Yeah, force.
Yeah. What are you protecting them from?
Well, you could be protecting them from other men, generally.
Right. So, I think under patriarchy, male violence is pervasive.
Under
And so that
matriarchy, male
creates-
violence is still pervasive.
Why?
Why is having a female leader going to make male violence no longer pervasive? That's bizarre. There's a difference between saying I have a society that's just filled 100% with women. That would be a
Sure.
claim, but you're not saying that.
Well,
You're talking about a matriarchy versus a patriarchy.
Right, but I think when it comes to patriarchy, obviously we're talking about male supremacy and domination.
Yeah.
And a form of domination is through violence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with all of that. So
Yeah.
what?
So obviously if that's not a tenet of matriarchy, then I don't think male violence would be pervasive because
Why
it's not
not?
used as a form of authority.
Are there still going to be men there?
Yeah.
What's going to make them less violent?
Well, obviously because it's not used as a form of authority. It's
But I just got done telling
violence
you
is not
that
tied to masculinity.
wherever men are and women are, women will depend on men for the use of force, period. That's my claim, regardless of where they are. So it doesn't matter if you have a queen. And it doesn't even matter if you put women
I think if you
as the CEOs of everything.
Are we assuming that just authority in general is force?
No. Authority in general isn't force, but in order to have rights or laws or governance of any kind requires force.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, so that's going to require men. So women are dependent upon men for force, period. So I think that
Under a system of law, sure.
under any system of governance, there's no system of governance in which women are not dependent on men for force. None.
You don't think that can be replaced with technology?
Nope. How? Men can destroy the technology. That's what force doctrine is.
Men maybe in groups too, but couldn't I say that about women?
No, because you're still going to have to compete with the male group. So your only options here are either this. Like, let's even say you reduce the male population down to 5%. You're just like, yay, it's all women now, and it's 5% men or something like this. You still would have a hard time controlling them. We know this because there have been war-torn nations where like 80% of the men have died, and they're still in charge because of that monopoly on force. It's not because women don't have access to guns. They have access to guns, but they're less good with them. Guns require physical strength. Technology requires physical strength. Like tanks, it requires physical strength to load one.
Okay. I mean, but when we're talking about cooperation, like co means with, so what's the delineation between you saying women should cooperate with men rather than men should cooperate with women?
Because men have the option that women don't have of utilizing force to make you cooperate.
Then that's not cooperating.
Yeah. Well, it is. Well, hang on. But it is still cooperation. So the idea here is just this. Is it the case that men should cooperate with women? I guess if they choose to.
Well, that's what cooperation is.
I would just say if
Okay, hold on. Let's pause right here because this is where she completely loses the plot. Andrew just got her to admit that even in a matriarchy, her dream scenario, right? Women would still depend on men for protection from other men. Like, do you understand what just happened? She walked face first into his entire thesis. And look at how he does it. He's not even being aggressive. He's just asking basic questions. What are you protecting them from? Other men. Why would male violence go away just because you have a female leader? It wouldn't. She knows it wouldn't. And the second she admits that, the whole argument collapses. Because here's what Andrew's really saying, and I know you guys already see this. Authority isn't some abstract social construct. It's physical. It's rooted in who can enforce the rules when everything breaks down. And that's always going to be men. Not because of some evil patriarchal conspiracy, but because men are stronger. That's just biology. That's just reality. And she tries to pivot to, well, under patriarchy, violence is used as authority. Yeah, no kidding. That's literally his point. He's not saying it's morally good or bad. He's saying it's descriptive. This is how the world works. Might makes. That's it. He even clarifies, it's not a moral ought. It's just descriptive. But she can't accept that because her entire worldview is built on the idea that if we just put women in charge, suddenly men will stop being violent. How? What's the mechanism? She has no answer because there isn't one. You can't social engineer away physical reality. And then Andrew drops the line about technology. She says, well, can't we replace male force with technology? And he just shuts it down. Men can destroy the technology. Like, dude, it's so simple. Who builds the tanks? Who loads the guns? Who maintains the drones? Men. You can't escape this. Even in her sci-fi matriarchy utopia, she'd still need men to enforce anything. The funniest part is when she brings up cooperation. Andrew immediately flips it. Men have the option women don't have, utilizing force to make you cooperate. She says, that's not cooperation. And he's like, yes, it is. Because it is. Cooperation doesn't mean equal partnership. It means working together under whatever power structure exists. And the power structure is always going to favor whoever controls force. I don't know how his debate opponents keep falling into these traps, but they do, every single time. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this. Does she ever recover from this? Spoiler, she doesn't.
I wouldn't say that they should. I mean, they're going to be the ones who make the rules because they have the force.
But that's not cooperation.
Well, it can be cooperation.
No, co means with.
Yeah, it is with.
It's doing it together.
Are you saying that if somebody's in a position of authority, necessarily that's not a cooperation? Like, do you not cooperate with your children?
I mean, I do cooperate with my children.
Yeah, so then
but
aren't you an authority?
That's not authority.
You're not an authority?
An authority in what sense?
You're in charge.
In charge of certain things, sure.
You're in charge of everything.
What do you mean I'm in charge of everything? I don't tell him like what he needs to play. Can
little Johnny tell you he's not going to the doctor today, Mom? Can he tell you he's not going to school?
I mean, if he's sick,
sure. Can he tell you he's not going to school?
Again, if he's sick, that's a possibility.
Okay, but
or I don't want to go to school. I'm not feeling well.
He's like, Mom, I'm sick. You think he's lying. Is Johnny
Okay.
going to school?
Most likely.
Yeah. So
But that's not cooperative. That's me using
when
my
he goes
authority.
and gets in the car and he's quiet, when you take him to school and you drop him off, that is cooperation.
I see what you mean in that sense. Maybe there's a better word that I'm trying to think of, where it's more working together and negotiating, where there is no necessary authority, like a partnership.
Yeah, but why should men have a partnership when they have the monopoly on force? I don't see why they need to have a partnership with women.
Why would you want to subjugate women?
It's not subjugation any more than it is with your children. So I think it's a privileged position that they get because they have the use of force. If they can be drafted and women can't, they get extra rights. Women don't get.
Again, I don't think that like war and the draft can always be like a necessary condition of the human existence.
Okay, give me a single 100-year span in which there wasn't massive war.
The
Anywhere in the world.
Iroquois lived in peace for 600 years.
No, the Iroquois fought plenty, especially within the Iroquois.
I mean,
talking-
there is a period of time, but there was also a period of treaty and peace.
The Iroquois well, are you talking about the Iroquois Confederacy?
No, the indigenous tribe, the Iroquois.
Yeah, I know. They had a confederacy, though.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Confederacy meaning like in the United States, but under like a loose doctrine of law. The Iroquois Confederacy. My understanding is that the Iroquois fought endlessly, along with most Native American tribes.
No, there was a period of, I would have to look up the source, a period of 600 years of peace. No, I don't think war is a continuous state of mankind. War is just fighting over resources.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And mankind's always fighting over resources.
Well, yeah, because of either scarcity or manufactured scarcity.
Well, I mean, scarcity can simply happen naturally, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So
Are we talking about like?
So
like
if you
famine?
so if you just have natural scarcity, which happens all the time, you can have conflict, and the enforcers in that conflict are going to be men. Men are going to be the defenders of your country,
right,
your
but when it
nation, your
comes to
household.
like natural scarcity, then obviously if you're in like communal groups, then that scarcity can be overcome where there's abundance.
Not always. Depends on what it is. Like, how are you going to communally in a group do anything about a food shortage? There's no food.
Other communities.
Yeah, if you have access to them.
Right, and I would say like in today's society we absolutely do.
Yeah, that's true. In today's
Yeah.
society, we do have global trade, things like this. You can assist people with various things, and war hasn't gone away at all.
All right, so now we're in the part where she's trying to argue that war isn't inherent to human nature. And guys, this is where it gets really funny, because she brings up the Iroquois as an example of 600 years of peace. And Andrew he doesn't even let it breathe. No, the Iroquois fought plenty. Like, this is such a classic leftist move. They find one obscure historical example, usually misrepresented, and try to extrapolate it into, see, humans don't naturally fight over resources. War is manufactured. It's insane. The Iroquois Confederacy absolutely had internal conflicts. They had wars with neighboring tribes. This isn't controversial. This is basic history. But what's she really trying to do here? She's trying to set up this idea that scarcity is manufactured, that war only happens because of capitalism or patriarchy or whatever boogeyman they're running with that day. And Andrew sees right through it. He asks her straight up, why did we go to war with Germany in World War II? And watch what she does. She stumbles. She says it was about fascism and imperialism. Okay, but where's the scarcity for America? We weren't running out of resources. We chose to get involved. So clearly war isn't always about scarcity. Sometimes it's about power. Sometimes it's about ideology. Sometimes it's just conquest. And then Andrew hits her with the best line. I think that's Marxist nonsense. Because it is. This idea that all human conflict boils down to resource distribution is a Marxist framework. It's materialist reductionism, and it ignores the fact that humans fight for all kinds of reasons: honor, religion, revenge, dominance, ideas. She tries to save it by saying, well, isn't land a resource? Sure, but that's not scarcity, that's conquest. Kings didn't invade neighboring territories because they were starving. They did it because they wanted more, because human nature is expansionist, because men are wired for competition and dominance. And this is the part where you can see her worldview just doesn't have an answer for male nature. She wants to believe that if we just rearrange society the right way, men will stop being violent. But that's not how it works. Violence isn't a bug in the system. It's a feature. It's baked into our biology. Andrew even brings up Christianity destroying Rome, which which is a whole other rabbit hole. But the point is, people fight over ideas too. Not just food, not just land, ideas. And that has nothing to do with scarcity. So where does that leave her argument? Nowhere. She concedes at the end that, sure, there could be other motivations for war, which means her entire materialist framework just collapsed. War isn't always about scarcity, which means male violence isn't going away just because you put women in charge, which means Andrew's original point stands. Women depend on men for force. Period. Let me know in the comments if you've ever seen someone try to use the humans lived in peace argument before. It's always the same, and it always falls apart the second you ask for specifics.
A little bit.
Well,
in the 20th, 21st
right,
century,
because
there's
of
been more warfare than ever.
manufactured, yeah, because of manufactured scarcity. I agree.
No, it's not always because of manufactured scarcity.
Yeah, it would be dependence theory.
Okay, so why did we go to war with Germany? That was over
time?
scarcity the second time?
World War II?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the rise of fascism.
So what was the scarcity?
Well, within that one, I would say obviously it was like authoritarian regimes trying to enact
scarcity
land.
Though? From who?
From Germany. Germany was trying to...
How did that affect us?
I mean, it didn't, but obviously we wanted to stop imperialism only.
So it didn't have anything to do with scarcity for us, did it?
It eventually down the line, it was America's concern that Germany or Russia would become a superpower and then start to come take our land. That's what...
Wait, what? So there was no scarcity for us, and we still got involved in the war. It's not always about scarcity of resources.
I mean, I do think it is somewhat of a basis. Because isn't that what regimes are about power or authority over your land and your people?
Yeah, your land and your people.
And acquiring resources.
Yeah, what did that have to do with us? We didn't have to get involved in that war.
I know, you're absolutely right. We didn't.
Yeah, so, but we didn't get involved in it.
But I'm saying that the
it wasn't even packaged as like resource problems. Nothing. So what resources were we without?
I'm saying that's like the crux of war.
It wasn't the crux of that war.
I mean, we were intervening in order to stop the imperialism from Germany to
Very
to
strange.
other countries.
How does that? Well, here's the thing. Even if we had let it go, wouldn't we have benefited from that?
I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, that had nothing to do with scarcity. I don't think that the propensity for human war and violence is always about scarcity and resource. I think that that's Marxist nonsense.
What would it be about?
Oh, it could be about all sorts of different things. It could be about an idea of conquest, right?
What do you mean by conquest?
Oh, I want to take over everything because I want to.
Well, isn't land a resource?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that what's the scarcity? You have plenty of land. You just want more anyway.
Yes.
But how does that come down to scarcity? Because you're saying the motivation is, I don't have enough of it.
It's essentially acquisition of resources. And if you have more resources, then you're less likely to have scarcity.
Okay, so you agree with me that kings are the ones who send their people to war?
Yeah.
Do kings have a lack of resources?
I mean, not within like their own personal experience, but within their kingdom. Yeah, isn't that what led to the fall of Rome? Was essentially too much global expansion, and then because they didn't have the resources in order to sustain their civilization.
No. Well, I mean, maybe there's a small part there, but it was Christianity basically is what destroyed Rome. So that's what basically took out Rome. When it's all said and done, was Christianity. It was the idea of no more unification of religious paganism. But I guess that's neither here nor there. That's another thing you could be fighting over, just religion. What's the scarcity there?
Oh, sure.
I don't like, Christian says, I don't like Muslims. Muslims say, I don't like Christians.
Sure.
Where's the scarcity?
I mean, obviously that's not a scarcity of resources. So sure, I can concede that there could be other motivations.
All right, guys. So let's talk about what just happened here, because this was a complete and total dismantling. Andrew Wilson just took this feminist through a logical chain that ended with her admitting his thesis for him. That's how you know someone won a debate, when your opponent makes your argument better than you could. She came in thinking she was going to expose patriarchy as violent and oppressive, and Andrew said, yeah, it is. And? Because his whole point is that might makes, not that it makes right, just that it makes. Authority requires enforcement. Enforcement requires force. Force requires men, therefore women depend on men. That's not a moral claim, it's a descriptive one. And she had no counter. Every time she tried to pivot, technology, matriarchy, cooperation, historical examples, Andrew shut it down with basic questions. Who controls the technology? Men. What changes under matriarchy? Nothing. What's cooperation without authority? Partnership, which men don't need because they have the monopoly on force. Give me an example of prolonged peace. You can't, because it doesn't exist. And the thing is, Andrew's not even trying to justify male dominance. He's just explaining how the world works. He's not saying men should oppress women. He's saying men have the option to, and women don't have the option to stop them without male cooperation. That's the reality. And once you accept that reality, the entire feminist framework collapses because it's built on the idea that power structures are arbitrary and changeable, but they're not. They're rooted in biology. The funniest part of this whole thing is when she tries to bring up scarcity and Marxist theory to explain war, and Andrew just bulldozes through it. What scarcity caused World War II for America? None. What scarcity causes religious wars? None. What scarcity causes conquest? None. It's not always about resources. Sometimes men just want more. And that's something the left can never account for, because they don't believe in human nature. They think everything is socialized, but it's not. So who won this debate? Andrew. By a mile. It wasn't even close. She couldn't answer a single one of his core questions. She couldn't provide a single example of a society where women weren't dependent on men for force. She couldn't explain how matriarchy would change male violence. She couldn't defend the Marxist scarcity framework. She lost on every front. And guys, this is what happens when you walk into a debate with ideology instead of logic. You get destroyed. Andrew's not ideological here. He's just observing reality. And reality doesn't care about your feelings. If you like this breakdown, smash that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment letting me know what you thought. Did she land a single point? Did Andrew miss anything? Let's talk about it. Welcome to MB. Stay sharp. I'll see you in the next one.